The First World War began when Britain and Germany went to war in August 1914, and Prime Minister Andrew Fisher's government pledged full support for Britain. The outbreak of war was greeted in Australia, as in many other places, with great enthusiasm. Australia's early involvement in the Great War included the Australian Naval and Military Expedition Force taking possession of German New Guinea and the neighboring island of the Bismarck Archipelago in October 1914. In November 1914, the Royal Australian Navy made significant contribution when HMAS Sydney destroyed the German raider SMS Emden. On April 25, 1915, members of the Australian Imperial Force AF landed at Gallipoli together with troops from New Zealand, Britain and France. This began a campaign that ended with the evacuation of the troops on 19 and 20 September in 1915. Following Gallipoli, Australian forces fought camping on the Western Front and in the Middle East. So, 1916 and 1917, losses on the Western Front were heavy and gains were small. In 1918, Australian reached on the peak of their fighting performance in the Battle of Hamel on July 4. From 8 August, they then took part of several decisive advances until Germany surrendered in 11 November. The Middle East campaign began in 1916 with Australian troops participating in the defense of the Suez Canal in Allied reconquer of the Sinai Peninsula. In the following year, Australian and other allied troops advanced into Palestine and captured Gaza and Jerusalem. In 1918, they had occupied Lebanon and Syria. In 30 October 1918, Turkey sued for peace. For Australia, as for many nations, the First World War remains the most costly conflict in terms of deaths and casualties for our population population of fewer than 5,016,809 men enlisted, of which over 60 millions were killed and 156 million ones guessed or taken prisoner. The outbreak of war was greeted in Australia, as in many other places, with great public enthusiasm in response to the overwhelming number of volunteers. The authorities set exactly physical standards for recruits, yet most of men accepted in the army in August 1914 were sent first to Egypt, not Europe, to meet the threat with which the belligerent Ottoman Empire possessed the British interests in the Middle East of the Suez Canal. There are a lot of reasons for the outbreak of the First World War. The first one will be the scramble for Africa. Many European nations wanted to have empires between 1870 and 1914. Much of Africa was colonized by European countries. This led to several arguments between European nations. For example, the Germans and the French argued about Morocco in 1906 and 1911. Another reason were the dispute over Alsace-Lorraine. In 1870-71, the German army attacked France. The Germans won the short war. As a prize, they took the regions of Alsace and Lorraine from France. The Germans claimed that they were very radical German. The majority of the people living here were French. However, the French were very upset by this and wanted the land back. They were also fearful of the German attacking again. The consequences of the Franco-German War were that France became suspicious and mischievous of the Germans. They made sure that they had a large army and lots of defense to stop invasions. This in turn kept the Germans suspicious of the intentions of the French. Another cause was the Russo-Turkish War. The Balkans was an area that the Austrians ruled much land in. However, some of the countries in the area had very strong links with Russia and Turkey. Both of these countries were eager to increase their influence in the area. In 1878, this led to war between Turkey and Russia. From this point on, the Balkans was an area that the Austrians, Turks, and Russians argued over. Each wanted control of the area, and they encouraged people in the area to support their claims for power. The naval race was another cause. The German Emperor Wilhelm II had a dream to be an imperial ruler. He set his sights on having an empire to match that of the British. To do this, he will need to have a large and powerful navy. In 1900, Wilhelm decided to put this dream into practice. He ordered the destruction of several large and powerful boats. The British saw that this threat and responded by building a dreadnought. This was fast and very dangerous boat. In turn, the Germans started building this type of boat, a race starting to have the largest navy. This race led to tension between Germany and the British. And probably the most important cause of the First World War were the assassination of the Franz Ferdinand Archduke. Days later of this, the First World War had begun with the Germans declaring war on Russia. After 4.5 months of training near Cairo, the Australians departed by ship for the Gallipoli Peninsula with troops from New Zealand, Britain, and France. The Australians landed at what became known as Anzac Cove on April 25 in 1915 and established the new foothold on the steep slopes above the beach. During the early days of camping, the Allies tried to break through Turkish lines, while the Turks tried to drive the Allied troops off the peninsula. Attempts on both sides ended in failure of the ensuring. The stalemate continued for the remainder in 1915. The most successful operation of the campaign was the evacuation of troops on 19 to 20 December under cover of a comprehensive deception operation. As a result, the Turks were unable to inflict more than a very few casualties on the retreating force. After Gallipoli, the AIF were reorganized and expanded from 2 to 5 infantry divisions, all of which were progressively transferred to France. Beginning in March 1916, the AIF Mountain Division that had served as additional infantry during the campaign remained in the Middle East. When the other AIF divisions arrived in France, the war on the Western Front had long been settled in the stalemate, with the opposition armies facing each other from trench systems that extend across Belgium and northeast France. From the English Channel to the Swiss border, the development of machine guns and artillery favored defense over attacking and confusing the impasse, which lasted until the final months of the war. While the overall hostile axis continued through in 1916 and 1917, the Australians and the other Allied armies repelled attack, preceded by massive artillery bombarding intended to cut barbed wire and destroy enemy defense. After these bombardments, waves of attacking infantry emerged from the trench into enemy defenses. No man's land advanced towards enemy positions, the surviving Germans protected by deep and heavily reinforced bunkers. We are usually able to repel the attackers with machine gun fire and artillery support from the rear. These attacks often result in limited artillery gains, followed in turn by German conquerors' attack. Although this style of warfare favored the defense, both sides sustained heavy losses. In July 1916, Australian infantry were introduced to this type of combat of frontier, where they suffered 5,533 casualties in 24 hours. By the end of this year, about 40,000 Australians had been killed or wounded on the Western Front. In 1917, a further 76,836 Australians became casualties in battle. Such bold court messages and the fourth month camping around Ypres, known as the Battle of Passchendaele. In March 1918, the German army launched its final offensive of the war, hoping for decisive victory before the military and industrial strength of the United States could be fully mobilized in support of the Allies. The Germans initially met with great success, advancing 64 kilometers past the region of the 1916 some battles. Before the offensive lost monument, between April and November, the stalemates of the present years began to give way, as the Allies combined infantry, artillery, tanks, and aircraft more effectively. Demonstrant in the Australian Cape of Hamil Spur on July 4 in 1918. The Allied offensive beginning on the 8th August at Mainz also contributed to Australian success at Mont, Este Quantin and Perone, and to the utter capture of the Hendy Line. On early October, the Australian divisions withdrew from the front for the rest of the feeling they were preparing to return when Germany surrendered in November 11. Unlike their counterparts in France and Belgium, the Australians in the Middle East fought a mobile wars against the Ottoman Empire in conditions completely different from the mood and strength of the Western Front. The light horsemen and their mounts had to survive extreme heat, harsh and terrain, and water shortage. Nevertheless, casualties were completely light, with 1,394 Australians killed or wounded in 3 years of war. The campaign began in 1916 with Australian troops participating in the defense of the Suez Canal and the Allied reconquer of the Sinai Peninsula. In the following year, Australian and other Allied troops advanced into Palestine and captured Gaza and Jerusalem. By 1918, they had occupied Lebanon and Syria. On October 30, in 1918, Turkey sued for peace. Australians also served at sea in the newly formed Flying Corps. The Royal Australian Navy RIN, under the command of the Royal Navy, made a significant contribution early in the war. When HMAS Sydney destroyed the German raider and them near the Cocos Islands in November in 1914, the Great War was the first armed conflict in which aircraft were used. About 3,000 Australian sailors served in the Middle East, and friends with Australian Flying Corps, mainly observation capacity of providing infantry support. Australian women volunteers observed in auxiliary roles as cooks, nurses, drivers, interpreters, munition workers, and skilled farm workers, while the government welcomed the service of nurses. In general, regiers offers for women in the other professions to serve overseas. Australian nurses serve in Egypt, France, Greece, and India, often in trying conditions or close to the front where they were exposed to shelling and aerial bombardment. The effect of the war was also felt at home. Families and communities grieved following the loss of many men, and women in turn assumed the physical and financial burden of caring for families. Anti-German feeling emerging with the outbreak of the war. Many Germans living in Australia were sent to internment camps. Censorship and surveillance regulated by many as the excuse to silence political views that had no effect on the outcome of war. Increased as the conflict continued, social division also grew, reaching a climax and bitterly contest. Conscription referendums held in 1916 and 1917. When the war ended, thousands of ex-servicemen, many disabled with physical or emotional wounds, had to be reintegrated into society. When to concede the war and the fire resumed after a normal life. Fascism. Fascism is a modern political ideology that seeks to regenerate the social, economic, and cultural life of a country by basing it on the heightened sense of national belonging of ethnic identity. Fascism rejects liberal ideas such as freedom and individual rights and often prays for the destruction of election, legislatures and other elements of democracy. Despite the ideological goals of fascism, attempts to build fascist societies have to lead to wars and persecution that cause millions of deaths. As a result, fascism is strongly associated with right-wing fanaticism, racism, totalitarianism, and violence. The term fascism was first used in Italian dictator Benito Mussolini in 1818. The term comes from Italy word fascio, which means human, of ledge. It also refers to the ancient Roman symbol of power, the faces of bull of stick bound to an axe, which represent civic unity of authority of Roman officials to punish wrongdoers. Fascist movements surfaced in most European countries and in some former European colonies. In the early 19th century, fascist political parties and movements capitalized on the intense patriotism that emerged as a response to widespread social and political uncertainty after World War I and the Russian Revolution in 1817. With the more important exception of Italy and Germany, however, fascist movement failed under attempts to seize political decisive impact on Europe history. From the end of the World War I and the Russian Revolution in 19. With important exceptions of Italy and Germany, however, fascist movement failed under attempts to seize political power in Italy and Germany after World War I. Fascists managed to win control of the states attempt to dominate all Europe, resulting in millions of deaths in Holocaust and the World War II. Because fascism has a decisive impact on the European history from the end of the War I until the end of World War II. The period from 1918 to 1945 is something called the fascist era. Fascism was widely discredited after Italy and Germany lost World War II, but persists today in new forms. Nazism is, in its origin, the official ideology of the NSDAP, National Socialist Worker Party German. Commonly known as a Nazi party, its foundation was not excessive theorizing, appropriating a large extent of fascist ideas according in which the state, to receive its cohesion and unity, must be totalitarian. For the Nazis, this argument was collided with the greatest racist Aryan racial superiority over the rest, the admiration for brute force and the cult of the latter were only two new contributions of Nazism. The social and economic situation of the Germans after the World War, Hitler's opportunism did the rest. Hitler and the Nazi Party achieved a large-scale popular support to encourage Germany to embark on the conquest of Europe in what was the Second World War. From left sectors of Nazism had been denounced as an inevitable product of capitalism, and above all, as a result of the imperialist tendency of stronger states. Under this impression, the German that permits capitalism society makes possible expression on this type of which cyclically gripping humanity. The Phalange party ideology founded in Spain in the 30s by José Antonio Primo de Rivera, National syndicalist ideology that is corporate and traditionalist inspired by Italy fascism and Nazism, which helped during the Civil War. Militarism in Japan is the brainchild of Emperor Hirohito, who saw modernization of Japan in its imperial expansion based on nationalism and emperor worship. With a strong repression of communism like the previous three, was inspired by fascism, which was live within World War II. All these ideologies advocate by kind of slavery happy and sacrifice on behalf of the greatness of our country. So operators must comply with this place that gives them love, their fathers, and belong the mass party, or disobey and